Seeing none, I will call on the Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to deliver my maiden speech as the member for Lethbridge West. I want to use the occasion to pay tribute to my community, and I hope to do them justice, both in this speech and in the discharge of my duties as their elected representative. Lethbridge West sits in the heart of Treaty 7, a treaty between the Blackfoot and Crown signed by Chief Crowfoot in 1877. The people who signed Treaty 7's descendants live in my city, just as they do throughout Canadian, American plains and foothills, as members of Piikani and Kainai, mainly of the Blackfoot Confederacy. My city is bordered by Canada's largest reserve lands, the lands given to the Kainai people, and the Piikani Reserve, home to some of the most beautiful riparian landscapes in the Old Man River Valley. Blackfoot people tell us stories of the abundance of the foothills and plains, the great herds of buffalo now disappeared from the landscape, their presence still held in the ecosystem by the flattened earth, the medicinal shrubs, the rich native prairie and soil. Madam Speaker, the worst of Canada's colonial history was played out in Treaty 7 territory. Smallpox and the extirpation of the bison herds robbed the people of their economy. Residential schools stole from parents the right to time and teaching of their children, stole dignity from the children and subsequent generations, and robbed the whole people of their language, spirituality, foods, medicines, and stories. The last great battle between Canadian Indigenous peoples took place in the middle of Lethbridge West, literally in the heart of my community. Its very center is the spot in the Old Man River Valley where the Blackfoot and Cree clashed for the last time in 1870. It is called the Battle of Belly River in the history books because the white settlers renamed the river to the Old Man some years later. The term Belly River, as the story goes, was too risque for Victorian sensibilities. The battle was about the Cree's view that the Blackfoot had been sufficiently decimated by smallpox to lose an invasion. The river ran red with the blood of the Cree, as the stories go, and while the Blackfoot elders now smile wryly at recollection of that battle or their stories, this is still a gentle reminder for all of us that the people are fierce, they are tough, there are lines one does not cross. Mr. Speaker, the Sundance has never stopped in southern Alberta, the ceremonies, the center of spiritual life for the Blackfoot people. Sundance had to go underground during the most vicious generations of white settler colonialism, but today it thrives in Kainai and now Siksika. Time is an enormous long river, and I stand in it just as my Indigenous sisters and brothers stand in it, and our work is now, after a great destructive flood of historical events, to move the stones back into place, to remove the deadfall of history but set it aside, and in its place as a reminder of what we have done and seen, repair the river together. We are all treaty people. On the west bank of the Old Man River, a short jog up a steep coulee from the scene of the last great battle, sits one of North America's finest art collections, tucked away in vaults at the University of Lethbridge. This is not something that not everyone knows or appreciates. In the middle of my riding, there are Picasso's, Matisse, Group of Seven, Warhol, de Grande Maison. One of North America's most impressive collections of art was built in the 1980s by the art department at the University of Lethbridge, where Billy McCarroll and others cleverly leveraged a Lockheed-era arts policy to build one of the best collections anywhere. Those province-building initiatives, deployed through the Heritage Fund and an activist government in the early 1980s, reverberate until this day. It is my hope that we can, as a government, get back to this ethic of building a common heritage via an inclusive and proactive approach to the arts. The Lethbridge arts community is not just locked up in a vault. It spills out to one of the best things about our city and is a major contributor to artistic inquiry and endeavour for the province. In my small city, you will find musicians like Leroy Stagger and Dave McCann, queer theatre and cabaret at Theatre Outre, a symphony, the New West Theatre, a pride festival and parade, independent artist studios, spoken word, zines, and a comic book, Eric Dick's Slaughterhouse Slew, dedicated to the history and present of the city. The Allied Arts Council, admirably steered by Suzanne Lint, supports many of these initiatives and ensures the whole community has access to the arts via the CASA, the Community Arts Centre that anchors the downtown of my riding. The city of Lethbridge has also been home to generations of immigrants. We have been at the centre of some of the defining moments of the 20th century. In World War II, after forcible confiscation of their property, Japanese Canadians were relocated to southern Alberta to forced work on the sugar beet plantations just outside my city. After the war, many of those families ended up staying. This is why, Mr. Speaker, Lethbridge is home to a Japanese Canadian population that own businesses, have become judges and elected officials, and have contributed to all of Canada's understanding of displacement, racism, and the value of immigration. Joy Kogawa, who grew up in Lethbridge, is one of Canada's most recognized authors. In Obasan, her award-winning novel, she says, "Where do any of us come from in this cold country? Oh Canada, whether you admitted it or not, we come from you. We grow where we are not seen, we flourish where we are not heard. We come from cemeteries full of skeletons with wild roses in their grinning teeth. We come from our untold tales that wait for their telling." Madam Speaker, my city has also become a national leader in welcoming Syrian refugees, just as we have welcomed immigrants from all around the world, from Italy, Hungary, the Americas, from Asia, and the Arab world for a century. Lethbridge was even featured in international news coverage. We have contributed very significantly through public and private sponsorship of Syrian refugees. To those refugees, I say, marhaban bikum fi Lethbridge. Welcome to Lethbridge. Lethbridge is also home to a vibrant Franco-Albertan community. The community centre, La Cité des Prairies, is the cultural hub that celebrates the fact that we are a bilingual society. I am proud that my own children attend the Francophone school La Vérendrye, and I commend the staff and the school at La Cité, as well as their board, for building a community where all Francophone heritage in all its global diversity is celebrated and woven into how we understand what it means to be at home in Canada. Madam Speaker, Lethbridge West encompasses the downtown, it encompasses the North End with established communities, and of course the West Side. The West Side is growing with new housing starts among the leaders in the province. The growth of the city of Lethbridge is an object lesson in diversification of the economy. The community is home to value-added and agricultural processing. It is home to manufacturing, steel, aerospace, oil and gas components. We have a tremendous renewable energy potential. Lethbridge is home to a growing technology centre. The Tech Connect Centre is a project of economic development Lethbridge, geospatial mapping, and new physics endeavours. The riding also acts as a public services hub, Madam Speaker, for the region. This is important as our government's approach to stable funding for public services has ensured that our small business sector continues to thrive. This is why, Madam Speaker, you see collaboration between the public and private sectors in Lethbridge in ways you may not see in other regions. In all this, economic development Lethbridge plays a key role, and Trevor Lewington and his whole team deserve recognition for their creative problem solving and commitment to diversification. On that topic, I would like to pay tribute to some of the most progressive and forward-looking small businesses in Lethbridge West. My friends Erica Juice at Plum Restaurant, Laura Lee and Paul Edwards at Drunken Sailor Clothing Shop, and Kyle Baines at Andrew Hilton Fine Liquor all merit a shout out for how they support our community, how they embrace paying a living wage to their workers, and how they have faith in our city as a place where diversity can take root and grow. All of the downtown businesses in Lethbridge are supported by the Downtown Business Revitalization Zone, which is ably and progressively steered by Ted Stilson and his wonderful staff, including my Deathbridge Derby Dame teammate and friend, Melissa Johnson. We have a history of strong women in Southern Alberta, Madam Speaker. I am only the fifth or fourth, depending on when Maria Fitzpatrick was declared the winner, woman to ever be elected south of Calgary. The first was Louise McKinney in Claresholm in 1914, one of the famous five. The second was Ada Thurston in 1944. The third was Bridget Pasteur in 2008. Numbers 4 and 5 did not come until 2015. There has still never been an Indigenous person, a New Canadian, or person of color, or an LGBTQ person represented in our legislature from south of Calgary. There is much work left to be done. Lethbridge is home also to a significant labour history. It was the epicenter of the coal mining communities, which was, of course, the first boom that powered this province. Lethbridge was the place where the first Industrial Disputes Resolution Act was written by Mackenzie King before he was Prime Minister, and was the place where the first occupational health and safety rules were developed in response to the Hillcrest mine disaster in 1914, which killed 166 people. That project of occupational health and safety finally saw its full implementation in Alberta in December 2015, Madam Speaker, when OHS was extended to all paid workers in the province. The Alberta Federation of Labour was founded in Lethbridge, Madam Speaker, in 1913. I was proud to assist with the centennial celebrations when I worked for the AFL with the leadership of Nancy Furlong, Gil McGowan, and Siobhan Vipont. Madam Speaker, a few words on what brought me here and what sustains us all. I am a mum to two boys. Finn is 7, Hudson is 5. They are beautiful and smart and hilarious. They don't always love Mum's new job. I don't blame them, and I'm away a lot, and that's why I carefully guard the time that I do have. But many Alberta kids grow up with a parent who works out of town. I know I did. My dad was an electrician who worked on oil rigs. He was gone a lot. But in the early 1980s, in economic conditions not unlike these ones, when a prolonged drop in the price of oil, my dad lost his job. My mom went back to work as a teacher. If Peter Lougheed had pursued policies of dramatically cutting healthcare and education in response, my family would have been left with nothing. I think about that a lot. My dad taught my sister and I that we could do anything we want. He used to say, you can be an electrician if you want, and that was a radical thing to say in the 1970s to a little girl. My mom is a strong woman in and of herself and will never ever leave you wondering where she stands, but my mom is still here to speak for herself and my dad is not. So let me share a little bit about him. My dad had an inborn intellectual curiosity that did not come from a university, it came from who he was. He was monumentally impatient with inequality. He loathed overt displays of wealth or opulence. He loved to fix anything he could and reuse it and think creatively about all the stuff that piled up in his Quonset. He used to say that you can learn anything you like in a school, but you must also learn, above all, how to work. My dad did not live long enough to see me get elected, though I think he would have not been surprised. Sometimes I look up in the gallery and wish he was sitting there. I think about how he would have been here to watch this speech, to watch question period. I think of him also in his market gardening role. After my dad retired from the oil patch, he ran himself a little strawberry and vegetable market garden, along with a million other things that my parents were doing. Dad used to talk to me all the time about how the weather was changing, how the availability of water was changing. Ross Phillips, you were ahead of your time, and you knew things in your bones that the rest of us need a book to learn. Mr. Speaker, I found the compassion and empathy that I learned from my parents in my party as an adult. I found it in those I worked for, Raj Panu, who officiated my wedding, and Brian Mason, who, when I delivered my father's eulogy, I looked out and there he was. I found it in the incessant hard work of Jack Layton, who was an early inspiration. I found the impatience with inequality in my friend Nikki Ashton. Madam Speaker, when I and a small group of dedicated New Democrats began knocking on doors in 2011, I did not expect to sit in government. I expected to serve the people of Lethbridge West. And I would like to thank Dave McCaffrey and Melanie DeCilia for going out with me on that first day in September 2011, after I won the nomination, and for so many days since. My entire riding association makes sure I have the right supports to do this job, but none more so than my good friend Keith McLaughlin, who once pledged to me that he would knock on every door between 13th Street and Copperwood, and he's made good on his word. I'd also like to recognize the hard work of New Democrats over the years in this area. Over the years, Gordon and Sylvia Campbell kept the ship moving and founded the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs. Others, Marshall and Angie Jaremko, Tad Mitsui, and Muriel Mello, are giants on whose shoulders I stand. Madam Speaker, it is my honor to stand in this House and enjoy the privileges of service in the public interest and the trust afforded to me as a parliamentarian. It is indeed the culmination of my adult life's work, and I think you will agree, Madam Speaker, that the community that sent me here deserves all of my effort to ensure careful and thoughtful consideration of the pressing matters before us. The people of Lethbridge West have asked for a legislative program that is inclusive, that works towards equality, where justice is our guide, where everyone has access to personal liberty and expression, to a responsible relationship with the planet and our place in natural ecosystems. And with that, Madam Speaker, I will take my share of the work for the people of Lethbridge West.